Hi again. So, I thought I'm going to talk to you about a topic that's getting more and more traction. And I think that it is it's an interesting one. So, for those of you who've been doing like web development for years and years and years, you may remember that way back when you used to inline most of your CSS. Like you would do a style tag on your element and you do most of your styling there, and then we will move it on into like doing CSS files and importing them as a part of the page render and so forth. And now the JavaScript community is coming in and kind of saying that, well, maybe we should, this was like a year or two ago where people were talking about maybe the inline thing was a good idea, because like maybe we can put our styling inside of our JavaScript files, because we're going towards this component mind mentality and everything should be in one place and all that stuff, which I in general I think that's a really good idea. Not like in any way saying that that's not the case, but that's the trend. And then people start to realize, oh, we have these limitations like media queries, because like the inline APIs for the browsers are fairly limited in comparison to CSS files, like because that's where we've been putting most of our energy and time since they came around, right? And now people are thinking, okay, but maybe if we start thinking about, we do our declaration of CSS in JavaScript, and then we generate CSS files because, then we get, we can get the benefits of scoped styles, or like bundling our styles with a single component, and the benefit of having, access to all these APIs, at least until, in the inline styles APIs catch up, if they ever do. I don't know, but and then you have other approaches for like, because the core problem that's being tried to solve, the people are trying to solve right now is the modularization of styles and components and everything. Like everybody's trying to figure out how to, how you, if you remember back before React and Angular and all these things, there was a large community about like around jQuery, and there was like, you remember with jQuery widgets, they're still around, like, but people would make widgets, like people would make them for everything, and what usually happened was that you imported that widget script into your page as a separate script, and you did pretty much what's happening with these larger frameworks today. The problem was that, and this is a problem even for the ad agencies, anybody who wants to create something that's going to be used on different websites, and that is that because there's a global namespace for both JavaScript and for CSS, in a sense, like both of them in a sense, you always run the risk of having unintended mutations or unintended behavior, and that's, from my perspective, what the CSS movement toward, like in CSS in JavaScript, like they're trying to solve that problem. And they're trying to figure out how to do this at scale, so that as you're, because everybody who's been doing development for a while knows that CSS, like I usually say that when CSS, you never fix CSS, you just add new rules at the end of your file to overwrite the old rules. And I think that there's a lot of truth in that, because it's just such a horrible thing to get right. And I will actually, some people have been saying that it's the hardest thing in front end, and I'm inclined to at least put it on the top three things that is the most difficult to do right in large code bases. So where am I going with this? What are my thoughts on it? Well, put it simply, I believe that there are patterns called like SMACs and object-oriented CSS, and my personal favorite is BEM, block element modifier. And what I think is happening is that the community is let's take Post CSS for example, which is a great tool for like handling style bundling and like all of that good stuff. They introduced a module called CSS modules, and it's a very I can see the benefit, but it's trying to, in my opinion, it's trying to solve the same sort of problem that BEM, for example, is already solving. And I've had this argument with several people who say that, well, obvious CSS modules or like inlining your styles, it's going to give you all these benefits, and I have to disagree. I honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I completely disagree. I agree that if you don't use BEM, for example, or any type of like naming, like reasonable naming pattern for your CSS, then yes, this is going to help you a lot. But to me, I still haven't found anybody who can show me what the big gain or the big difference between BEM and CSS modules are. It is in essence this. I can't see the big gain. I can see that it's automated. I can see that it may, if you, once again, to me it's a trade-off. I mean, you add another tool to your stack for the benefit of something that I think is almost not even. I would even say it's almost too much to say that it's a clear benefit. It's meh type of situation. It's not something I use every day for every project, and if it's not my bread and butter, I can live without it. And so and this is my general opinion about this, like JavaScript CSS in JavaScript, that I understand the movement, and I understand that, styling and I mean, if you're making a widget that's going to be on on a lot of different pages, then yes, I can understand that inlining as much as possible is a good idea, because you get the specificity right. And it's almost like it makes things very convenient for the consumer of your widget. So if that's your case, if you're making a widget or a component that might be used on like several different places, then yes, I agree. You should probably inline that. But I don't see why this, as people are saying, this problem with scalability has to exist at the inlining level, or that you have I mean, it's a good movement, but I don't think it's a good movement for the same reason that the people who are making all these tech talks and like talking about these frameworks think that it is a good movement. And let me just elaborate on that a little bit. I believe that the problem of CSS mutations and scoping has been solved through BEM. BEM solves that problem for you, and if you want to have this nice coupling between your JavaScript and your HTML and if you watched any of my other videos, that I'm a big advocate of this directory, like encapsulation at the directory level. If you have a button component, then you create a directory called button in your project, and it doesn't matter if you're using Angular or JavaScript or React, or in just render things on the server side. You put the template, which is your HTML or your JavaScript, like whatever it is, in that directory. You put your test in that directory. You put your CSS or Sass or Less or whatever you're using in that directory. And to me, that is just as good as having a single JavaScript file, because remember, with this approach, you get the same benefit as bundling everything in the same JavaScript file, but you don't have to use JavaScript every single time. You can still do it, but this is, in my opinion, this is much more flexible. And over the last 2 years, we've been moving towards that at Ticketmaster, and it's working very well. I have to say, I'm surprised. I thought we were usually that's the case. You think you have a good idea or something seems too good to be true, and it turns out that there was an oversight. But so far I haven't seen it. It's really, really working really well. So, what did I mean about I think that there are benefits to inlining or putting your CSS in your JavaScript, but I don't think it's the same benefits that the community is talking about right now. So what I'm saying is that because we are as humans flawed. We simply are not. CSS, this is it's something that is really tricky to do well, and I don't think anybody does it well. And it's basically CSS optimization. What if you could have a tool where you declared all of your CSS the way that you wanted, any way you wanted, and you had a tool that looked over your CSS and thought, hey, if I rewrite this or restructure it, I can actually save you a couple of kilobytes on your size, on the file size of your CSS. I mean, how cool wouldn't that be? I mean, it's like decompressing or optimizing images and like assets that we already do, and that is very, very difficult. I don't think you can do it with simply CSS files, because such a tool would have to understand that, okay, these are your templates and these are the places where you're using your different CSS class names and IDs and all these selectors, right? So it has to be able, the tool has to be able to understand that there's a coupling between your components and the styles. Because if it understands, okay, these are the styles you're using and you use them in these places, it could, in theory, rewrite the names that you give. Like when you declare your stuff inline, you don't even put in class names, right? You don't actually specify that, because that's what you do in CSS, right? You declare a selector and the styling, and then you put it on an element. But what if you didn't even say this is the style selector? I just want these styles to be on that element. If you express that, then you could have I think I could try it. I don't know if if I could, but in theory you could build a tool that would just run through your entire code base and see, hey, all these styles, I can put that in one style, and then I can extend that style and reuse it here and here. Basically, you could compute in a automated fashion, optimize all your styling, and probably get down the overall sizes of your CSS files by I don't know how much. But I think that's in my opinion what I am more excited about when it comes to the idea of putting your CSS in JavaScript, because if you do that, you get access to a program, to code and programming and all the benefits that come with that. So I think that's food for thought. Otherwise, I don't see this great hype everybody's talking about. I would say that if your use case is a widget, yes, absolutely, inline stuff. Otherwise, I would just use BEM.